What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Lockdown Defense Sports Network. I am your host for today's episode of the Lightning Lockdown Weekly Chargers Recap. Young RG, Robert Garcia, as Coach likes to call me. And in today's episode, we are going to be diving into that Chargers gritty win over the Kansas City Chiefs, their first sweep of the Chiefs since 2013. We are also going to be previewing that Cowboys game. So be sure to stick around for all of it, and let's get right into it. So starting off with the recap of the Chiefs game, of course, the Chargers are victorious in this one, 16-13 in an absolutely gritty, tough-fought battle, classic AFC West rivalry. The Chargers ultimately with that insane defense came out on top. We were kind of going over some of the goals for this game, the things the Chargers needed to do, in my opinion, in order for them to secure a win over KC. And it didn't look great because one of the first things I mentioned for the offense was sustaining those methodical drives downfield, kind of getting the run game going, keeping Mahomes essentially off the field on the sidelines. And unfortunately, we weren't really able to do that. This is a very tough Chiefs defense, still, one of the top defenses in terms of points per game allowed. The Chargers, unfortunately, and of course, need I say it anymore, that banged up O-line, atrocious O-line, really wasn't giving Herbert much time of anything. Spags, the defensive coordinator for the Chiefs, loves to send pressure, loves to send blitzes, but it is kind of a little bit of a detriment to the Chiefs team this year because they really are unable to get any kind of pressure on any quarterback with just a four-man rush. So in order to get some kind of pressure, they do have to send those blitzes. Against this O-line, unfortunately, there really wasn't much you could do against that. There was a couple of them where he had, I think even one blitz, he had like 8 guys lined up in the box, and there was no quick route throws available. Now, part of that is on Herbert. He should be able to check out of some of those things and check a route when he sees, 8 guys in the box. Greg Roman continues to just really not do Herbert any favors with this atrocious O-line that he's dealing with right now. And you definitely saw that in this game as well. 4 sacks taken by Herbert. And I say that lightly because Herbert is one of the top QBs in terms of the sacks that he takes are really not any fault of his own. He gets pressured in under 2 seconds. Take that for what you will. However, it really turned around after that. I did say Mahomes needed to be their leading rusher, and although he wasn't by only 6 yards, he did have their only touchdown. A rushing touchdown came on a 12-yard scramble, and the run game between Pacheco and Kareem Hunt was really going nowhere. He did lead the team in yards per carry for whatever that's worth. He only took off 2 times for a total of, I think it was like 15 yards, I want to say it was. So regardless, though, it was kind of that same principle in the sense that, Mahomes was the biggest threat on the ground yet again for the Chiefs, and the Chargers, of course, did a very good job of shutting that down after the first drive of the game. Like I mentioned already in the intro, this is the first time, this is another one of my points, is the first time the Chargers were able to sweep KC for the first time since 2013. Massive year for them to do it. And of course, the biggest thing was keep Herbert healthy. He needed to come out of the game healthy. So you definitely are happy with that. Defense balled out yet again. Thule and Odafe Owe are just a nasty edge rush duo, each of them getting 2 sacks apiece. Owe, in the 9 games he's played with the Chargers since being traded from the Ravens, has racked up 7 sacks already without having not registered any with the Ravens prior. So definitely a change of scenery for him. And in this Jesse Minter scheme, he has definitely unleashed Owe, and he is absolutely worthy of a contract extension. Actually, both these guys are, now that I think about it, because Thule, I believe, this is his 3rd year. These guys are both going to most likely get paid a good amount of money. And, Khalil Mack, obviously the leader of this edge rushing group, did have a sack himself, brings him up to, I think, 5.5 on the year. He's obviously just a veteran presence, and occasionally he can really get you a big play. I think, unfortunately, he probably will be gone after this year, but it really does open up the door for Thule and Owe to really, step into that starting role. I say starting, of course they're already starting, but really take over that edge rushing group. As we kind of bid Khalil Mack a farewell. And I mean, I can spend an entire video talking about how much Khalil Mack has meant to this franchise and to this defense since we acquired him. One of the few good things that Tom Telesco really did. But yeah, we love Khalil Mack here in Charger Blue. Very happy that, we're at least getting a successful season that he will most likely ride off into the sunset on. Also want to shout out, like I said, you can see here the game MVP is once again the entire defense 2 weeks in a row. Deion Henley with a massive interception in the red zone. He did go down at the one, unfortunately. I don't think the Chargers got any points off that, if I'm not mistaken. But it was at the end of the game. Might have gotten a field goal. I could totally be wrong. But it was just a massive play for when it happened. The Chiefs were obviously driving. And yeah, there was a really big chance there for Mahomes to potentially take the lead or at least tie it up. And, Henley shutting that down completely. Derwin, another interception, not against Mahomes, and I'll get into that just a little bit as we finish this up. It was against Gardner Minshew, Uncle Rico, as I like to call him, essentially to end the game. The Chiefs were definitely right there pressing up on field goal range territory, and Derwin with, covering Kelsey, just a great play on the ball, and, that was the end of it. This was a very, very physical game. Speaking of Derwin James, him alongside Tony Jefferson were absolutely laying the hammers down. Run defense was very stout, albeit it was against, like I mentioned, one of the worst rushing teams in the league. But, for what it's worth, they did shut that down and really kept the Chiefs one-dimensional in this game. Talking about the, physicality that took place in this game, obviously, at the end of it, Mahomes unfortunately did tear his ACL through. It wasn't really like a dirty play. I know Chiefs fans on Twitter are going crazy because apparently the Chargers are now a dirty team, which is hilarious after having a team with the defense that was just pushovers for so long. Now people are saying that we're a dirty defenses. Chargers fans kind of just laugh at it because we know it's not true. Nobody in this game was headhunting. The only penalty that got called for unnecessary roughness was on Tony Jefferson that he eventually got ejected from the game because of, even though it was only the one penalty. And it really, honestly, if you want to call it a penalty, you can go look at the replay. Go also check out the Lockdown Blitz show where we dive into that a lot deeper. Ref Guru does a great job kind of detailing it and breaking that play down. But, personally, I really didn't think it was, much of anything. If you want to call helmet to helmet, that's fine. But I really didn't think that it was worthy of an ejection. I guess the refs just kind of thought hey, we need to kind of send a message to both of these teams that this physicality needs to kind of, cut down a little bit because, like I mentioned, with Tony J and Derwin, they were laying guys out. I mean, Derwin had a really big hit on Worley to force an incompletion. Tony Jefferson had a monster hit on Rashee Rice, completely clean hit, no helmet to helmet, didn't leave, his feet, just a very clean tackle. And yeah, I mean, Rashee paid the price for it, paid the price, right? But yeah, it was definitely just a very physical game. And then also have to shout out once again, Cameron Dicker. If he's not first team all pro this year, I don't even know what to say anymore because he had yet another perfect day of kicks. He went 4 for 4, 3 field goals and the extra point after following up his 5 for 5 performance against the Eagles on Monday night. So yeah, just very happy. Again, can't even stress this enough, how important it is to have, such a reliable kicker on this team, especially with the way with the way this team is winning games, mostly through the defense and just scraping together points when they can. He needs to be automatic. And if he misses any of these kicks in these last 2 games, we most certainly lose this game or any of these games, probably both. So just once again, have to absolutely shout out Cameron Dicker, man. He is he is a beast. Absolutely love him. Make sure you go vote for him for the Walter Payton Man of the Year, by the way. As I mentioned, the slow offense, this is back-to-back weeks that the offense has only scored 1 touchdown. However, it was, take that with a grain of salt. These are 2 of the better defenses in the league, the Eagles and the Chiefs. And of course, with those injuries to the O-line, it is very tough to get, any sort of momentum going when you're just getting sacked on 3rd down, getting sacked on 1st down, pressure in your face at every other turn. So, just the fact that they're able to come away with these wins, the Chargers, I mean, they're a gritty team. And, ultimately at the end of the day, we've said it all year because that's how the Chargers have won all year. You would rather win ugly than lose beautifully. And the Chargers are very used to losing beautifully for the past couple of regimes. So definitely turning this around. That is the Harbaugh effect. That is the Minter effect. And of course, Herbert in the middle of that through it all. So absolutely, stellar game in terms of just coming out with the win and how gritty this team is. They fight, man. And even when it was, we were down 13-3 early, or I don't say early, but in the first half after Herbert threw a pick, obviously got hit as he threw, but it was a duck in the air. And I think it was Bolton, I want to say it was, who caught it. Or no, actually it might have been some D lineman that I'm totally blanking on his name right now though. But, it is what it is. They did find a way to win. And after the Chiefs went up 13-3, Herbert, Keandre Lambert-Smith, I should say, had a great return to get it back to like the 40, I think it was. And then Herbert with two monster throws, both to rookies, one to Trey Harris, to get them into at least field goal range, and then just I don't want to say a bullet because it was a little bit of a floater, but he found Keandre Lambert-Smith in the back of the end zone for his second catch of his career. Ends up being a touchdown, and a massive one at that, because it really put the Chargers in the catbird seat coming out of halftime. They had a nice drive to go down and tie the game up at 13 apiece. And then ultimately, you shut out the Chiefs in the second half, get another Dicker field goal, and, the Chargers are cruising to a win and do eliminate the Chiefs here. I think I mentioned it a little bit, but I want to just dive into it again. Mahomes suffering that torn ACL on the last drive of the game was absolutely brutal. That's just horrible to see, man. Regardless of what team you root for, putting the rivalries aside, you never want to see a star quarterback go down like that, especially at this time of the year. Those ACL injuries are brutal. They can be brutal in terms of recovery. It's the recovery timetable is anywhere from 9 to 12 months. And, obviously everybody, I'm sure there's some terrible people out there who are hoping he stays out, but I think this game is at its best when all the best players are on the field for both teams. And I think, especially for me personally, I never want to see injuries to either side. I want to be able to say at the end of it, whatever team won completely. It wasn't due to somebody leaving at the middle of the game or whatever the case may be. So definitely prayers out to Mahomes, and hopefully he has a speedy recovery. Because, the games between the Chargers and the Chiefs have always been good. They've always been nail biters, always been one-score games. I can't even really remember the last time the Chargers and the Chiefs weren't in a one-score game. So, take that for what you will. But, prayers up to Mahomes. And now let's dive right into the Cowboys game. So, Week 16 at the Cowboys. This is our second game in a row on the road against the NFC East team. Taking a look at the quick injury report, those who did not practice today: Darius Davis with this ankle injury, and of course RJ Mickens, that shoulder injury that he suffered in that Chiefs game. Darius Davis had already been out this past week against the Chiefs. I think he got hurt in that Eagles game, so he's still not practicing. It's also why Ladd and Keandre Lambert-Smith were returning kicks for most of these games. So hopefully we can get Darius Davis back, sooner rather than later. And then RJ Mickens, just another rookie who has really come into his own in that safety spot once Alohi Gilman got traded. Obviously, another guy, Elijah Molden, was out this week against the Chiefs, so Mickens got the start. And that's why that ejection to Tony Jefferson was even that much worse, because we were already down Molden. Mickens at that point was already out for the game with that shoulder injury. And now you lose Tony Jefferson, down three safeties. That was, a bit of a concern. Thankfully, the defense really, kept it together, and those injuries didn't really play too big of a factor. And, looking over at the limited, it does look like we are going to get Elijah Molden back for this game against the Cowboys. So that is a good sign there, with obviously RJ Mickens going out. Trey Pipkins is another guy. I believe he was out this week against the Chiefs, or he did leave the game against the Chiefs with that ankle injury, but he's back on a limited basis. So all signs pointing to it. If you're at least practicing in some kind of capacity, a couple days in a row, it does look like you are going to play. So hopefully for, Herbert's sake and for this O-line's sake, Pipkins can be back on the field and healthy. Now, what to look forward to in this upcoming matchup, keys to victory. So offensive goal for this game, it's air raid time, man. The Cowboys have one of the worst scoring defenses in the league. They are currently second worst in terms of points per allowed per game, and they are giving up 30 even. The only other team in the league that is giving up 30 or more points per game is the Bengals, and we already know how absolutely atrocious that defense is and has been for quite some time. So yeah, this is absolutely the game where, Herbert needs to get this offense going. I know he's got those O-line issues. The Cowboys aren't great at getting after the quarterback. They have 29 sacks on the season, which is, tied for bottom 10 in the league. The Chiefs also are a team, that were at 29, or they were actually at 25 sacks going into the game against the Chargers. They obviously rack up 4 to put them right with the Cowboys there. So obviously with this O-line, anybody can really have it. This interior has already been awful for the longest time, and the Cowboys do have some playmakers on defense. Thank God Micah Parsons is not there, because I don't even want to know what he would have done to this O-line in this current state had he still been on the Cowboys. But Quentin Williams is still there. Kenny Clark is also still there. He's more of a run stopper, but still, they do have talent on this D-line. And again, with this O-line, anybody can have them at this point. So we'll see what happens. But I really do believe that, the Chargers can get this offense going, just given how weak the Cowboys defense is. However, on the complete flip side of that, as awful as the Cowboys defense is, their offense is the best in the league in terms of yards per game and pass yards per game. This is going to be the toughest challenge for the Chargers defense following their bye week. The Eagles, as good as they are, their offense has definitely seen their fair share of issues. The Chiefs, again, no running game. They become very one-dimensional. And even, with Mahomes playing Superman most of the season, they even with that, they were not able to really generate any sort of consistent offense. So this is by far going to be the toughest test for this Minter defense. And it's really going to show, us Chargers fans and maybe the league potentially just how good this defense can be if you're able to shut down this offense. Man, this is, again, the quote unquote best offense. So there really shouldn't be another team that you face that will give you as much trouble as this one. They got 2 bona fide wide receivers. This is the best wide receiver duo in the league in Pickens and CeeDee Lamb. Both of them are top 10 in terms, or even if you want to get more specific, both of them are top 8 in terms of receiving yards. Of course, Pickens being third, but he has kind of had back-to-back, really just deflating games, with these 2 losses that the Cowboys have suffered back-to-back against the Lions and the Vikings. It's definitely, something to kind of keep an eye out. This defense has been playing lights out, so I really do think they are going to do a good job of being able to shut at least him down. CeeDee Lamb is going to be a little bit of a different discussion. Another reason why I say Pickens more is because it's a little bit easier to get into his head if you can kind of take his care out for the game pretty early. You really don't have to worry about him much after that. He is, a very moody player in the sense that, if things aren't going his way, he just kind of gives up and pouts. So that is going to be a big thing for this defense early in this game, is seeing if you're able to kind of take Pickens out of it mentally. And then you really only got to worry about the CD, threat on the other side as well. So going to be tough regardless. Also, Javonte Williams, who is another member of that team, kind of just blew up this year out of nowhere. He is top 6 in terms of rushing yards at 1,113. And I think there's only like 7 running backs right now, 8 running backs, pardon me, that are over 1,000 yards right now. And he is one of them. And, you're talking about the guys like Achane, Bijan, Jonathan Taylor, some of those well-respected, well-known running backs. So for him to be kind of in that category with them, it's definitely a threat that you got to look out for. And the Chargers have been a little bit shaky in terms of controlling the run game. Obviously Barkley had a big game against us, and the Chiefs, again, one of the worst rushing teams in the league. So definitely just something that the Chargers are going to have to keep an eye out for, which brings me to my next point here. And the Chargers must force at least 1 turnover or 2, at least win the turnover battle. That's definitely got to be a goal here. And I feel like you're going to have to against this potent offense. The Cowboys are 4th worst in the league in terms of turnover differential. They are -7. So they turn the ball over, not frequently, but they turn the ball over way more than they turn the ball over. I just went totally back and forth there. The Cowboys force turnovers as little as they do turning the ball over on offense. So definitely something that they're going to have to take advantage of. The Chargers are in this case. So definitely, if you're able to get at least one or two, like I said, just win the turnover battle, you should be in good shape here. And of course, the most important, as always, and it's probably going to stay like that for the rest of the year until playoffs, is to keep Herbert upright and healthy. Regardless of what the stats look like, Herbert has been an MVP caliber player with the O-line he's had to deal with. And so just as long as they're able to keep him healthy, we should be in a good spot. Also tying into this a little bit, the Chargers are second in the league defensively in terms of yards per game allowed. So you have the number one offense going up against the number two defense. This should be a great matchup on paper, at least. And again, it will be a very big test for the Chargers. Going into my predictions here, my bias prediction is I am going to have the Chargers winning 28-24. I just feel like if that defense is able to contain and force a turnover or two, the offense should be able to do enough against a defense that really kind of lets everybody score on them. I mean, they've let J.J. McCarthy have his best game of his career against them. So definitely going to be something that I feel like the Chargers can win. Now going with my neutral prediction here, flipping that over, again, just addressing this O-line for the Chargers. I really just don't think that they're going to be able to, again, looking at this non-biased, I think the Chargers defense will get slightly overwhelmed by this Cowboys offense. You just leave it up to the O-line. If they're not able to give Herbert any protection and this Cowboys D-line is teeing off on Herbert, you're in for a long game. The defense will only be able to do so much. And again, against this offense, it's not going to be like how it was these last 2 weeks. You're not holding them to 13. You're not holding them to 19 points. Cowboys are most likely going to score at least 25 in this game. So you're definitely got to be able to beat that. I know in the Chargers win prediction, I have them only scoring 24, but realistically, the Cowboys are going to put up a ton of points, and it's just going to be a matter of, can you match them in certain scenarios? Can you rob a possession here or there? And then also, if and when you do take a possession, can you capitalize on it? Because the Chargers have been getting picks and interceptions. Obviously, against the Eagles, they had 5 turnovers, and they really weren't coming away with any points on them. And I was listening to LaShawn McCoy speak a little bit earlier in last week after that Eagles game. And he actually made a pretty solid point in all that rambling that he did about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. But he made a great point in the sense that if you force a turnover and you don't capitalize by scoring any kind of points on it, is it really a turnover? Because, at the end of the day, the offense is still getting the ball back, and they're getting the ball back with the same score as when they, turned the ball over. So this is going to be a very big prove-it game for this defense. And this is also a great chance for this offense to really kind of kick into gear and get some kind of momentum going before, these last 2 games against vaunted defenses in the Texans and the Broncos, and then eventually, the playoffs as well. So definitely excited for this game, excited to see what's going to happen. It is our last NFC East opponent of the year, also NFC opponent. We are 1-2 against the NFC East. And if you would have told me we were 1-2 against them with the 1 win coming against the Eagles, I would have told you you're absolutely crazy, but them's the way the cards fall. That's the way the season's been. Those 2 losses to the Giants and the Commanders early on really put the Chargers in a tough spot to try to win this division. You're going to need a lot of help from the Broncos, of course, and from other teams as well. So those aspirations might be a little bit, too far gone at this point, but you are still absolutely fighting for playoff seeding. And I bet you every team in the AFC right now wants to face whoever comes out of the AFC North, which is a guaranteed matchup between them and the 5th seed. So the Chargers hold that 5th seed strong right now. They are going to have to keep pace with some of these other teams, the Bills, the Texans, things like that. So we'll see what happens here. It's going to be a great game regardless, and I am very excited for it. Please, guys, be sure to check out the gang and their socials down below. We have our Commanders Insider, Mike Dubb. We have our Chiefs Insider, Alex Gibbons. Give him some grace this week, y'all. And we also have myself, Young RG, Robert Garcia, your Chargers Insider. Be sure to check us out on X or Instagram if it allows. And, of course, be sure to check out the Lockdown Defense Sports Network across all social media platforms. We are on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, and Gmail. Guys, we want to hear from you. Comment down below what you think of our predictions. What do you think is going to happen? Your playoff predictions, give us your thoughts, things like that. Also, be sure to reach out to us to let us know what you want to see. We make these videos for you guys, and we are happy to, of course, put out content that you guys want to see. So with that all being said, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.